Chapter 1. The Azure Invitation. The late summer sun cast a golden haze over London, its warmth lingering in the air as Hercule Poirot sat in his impeccably ordered study at Whitehaven Mansions. The little Belgian detective, with his meticulously waxed mustache and polished patent leather shoes, was sipping a tisane, his grey eyes scanning a letter that lay open on his mahogany desk. The envelope, of fine azure paper, bore a crest unfamiliar to him, a stylized sapphire encircled by laurel leaves. "Mon ami Hastings," Poirot called, his voice precise yet tinged with curiosity. "What do you make of this?" Captain Arthur. Hastings, lounging in an armchair with a newspaper, looked up with a start. "What's that, Poirot? Another case, I hope? Life's been deucedly dull since that business with the Cornish heiress." Poirot's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. "Dull, you say?" Nan, Hastings. The life is never dull when one employs the little grey cells. Observe this invitation." He held up the letter, its elegant script catching the light. "It is from a Signor Lorenzo Moretti, requesting my presence at his villa in Sorrento. He speaks of a matter most delicate, involving a jewel of great renown, the scion of Sorrento. A jewel." Hastings sat up, his interest piqued. "Sounds like a lark. Sorrento's a splendid spot, cliffs, see, all that. But why you, Poirot? You're not a jeweller." "Precisement, Hastings. It is not the jewel itself, but the mystery surrounding it that calls for Hercule Poirot. Signor Moretti writes of shadows of deceit and a danger veiled in beauty. He insists I attend a gathering at his Villa Celeste, where this sapphire will be displayed. Tiens, it is not every day one receives such an enigmatic summons." Hastings frowned, rubbing his chin. "Sounds fishy to me. Could be a trap, Poirot. You've made enemies, you know." Poirot waved a dismissive hand. "A trap? Nan, the letter is sincere, though it conceals as much as it reveals. The postmark is from Sorrento, and the paper expensive, Italian, with a watermark of the finest quality. This is no jest, Hastings. And besides," he added, his eyes gleaming, "the symmetry of a mystery. It appeals to me. I shall go." "Jolly good," Hastings exclaimed, then hesitated. Am I invited, too?" Poirot chuckled softly. "But of course, mon cher, your loyalty, if not always your deduction, is indispensable. Pack your bags, Hastings. We depart for Italy tomorrow." The journey to Sorrento was a tapestry of elegance and anticipation. The Orient Express carried them through the Alps, its polished wood and velvet upholstery a fitting prelude to the grandeur awaiting them. From Naples, a sleek motorcar whisked them along the Amalfi coast, where cliffs plunged into the turquoise sea and lemon groves perfumed the air. Poirot, ever observant, noted the driver's reticence, man of few words, his eyes darting to the rear-view mirror as if expecting pursuit. At last, they arrived at Villa Celeste, a sprawling estate perched above the Bay of Naples. Its white stucco walls glowed in the twilight, adorned with bougainvillea and framed by cypress trees. As Poirot and Hastings stepped from the car, a tall figure emerged from the villa's arched entrance. Signor Lorenzo Moretti, with silver hair and a patrician bearing, extended a hand, his smile warm but his eyes guarded. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, welcome," he said, his English accented but flawless. "I am deeply grateful you have come. The Villa Celeste is honored by your presence." "The honor is mine, Signor Moretti," Poirot replied, bowing slightly. "Your invitation, it intrigues me. Tell me, what is this scion of Sorrento, and why does it bring such urgency to your words?" Moretti's smile faltered, and he glanced toward the villa, where figures moved in the lamplit windows. "All in good time, Monsieur. Tonight, you rest. Tomorrow, you will meet my family, and guests on the sapphire itself. But I warn you, not all is as it seems. The scion carries a weight of history, and perhaps a curse." Hastings shivered despite the warm evening breeze. "A curse, you say? That's a bit melodramatic, isn't it?" Moretti's eyes darkened. "In Sorrento, Captain, the past is never silent. Come, let us dine. The mystery awaits." As they followed Moretti into the villa, Poirot's mind was already at work, his grey cells stirring. The azure invitation had opened a door, and behind it lay a puzzle as glittering and dangerous as the sapphire itself. Chapter 2. The Villa of Secrets. The dining room of Villa Celeste was a vision of opulence, its high ceilings adorned with frescoes of cherubs and vines, and a chandelier casting a soft glow over a table set with Limoges, porcelain and silver. Hercule Poirot, seated to the right of Signor Lorenzo Moretti, surveyed the assembled company with his keen, bird-like gaze. Captain Hastings, opposite him, was already engrossed in the aroma of roasted lamb and rosemary, though his eyes darted curiously to the other guests. Signor Moretti rose, his presence commanding as he tapped a crystal glass. "My friends," he began, his voice resonant, "tonight we are honored by the presence of Monsieur Hercule Poirot, the renowned detective, and his companion, Captain Hastings. They join us at a momentous time, as tomorrow I shall unveil the scion of Sorrento, the sapphire that has been in my family for generations." A murmur rippled through the room, and Poirot noted the varied reactions. To Moretti's left sat his wife, Signora Claudia Moretti, a statuesque woman with raven hair and eyes that seemed to hold a perpetual challenge. She nodded politely but toyed with her wineglass, her fingers betraying a restless energy. Next to her was their daughter, Isabella, barely 20, her delicate beauty marred by a nervous glance toward her mother. Across the table, a burly Englishman, Mr. Reginald Hawthorne, leaned back with a skeptical grunt. "A sapphire. I hope it's worth the fuss, Moretti. I've come a long way from London for this." His wife, Mrs. Evelyn Hawthorne, a petite woman with a sharp tongue, shot him a look. "Do behave, Reggie. It's not every day we're invited to an Italian villa." Beside them sat Dr. Antonio Rossi, a local physician with a scholarly air, his spectacles glinting as he studied Poirot with undisguised curiosity. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, "your reputation precedes you. I trust you find Sorrento to your liking." "It is most charming," Poirot replied, his tone courteous. "The order and beauty of this place. It pleases me. But I am intrigued by the shadows. Signor Moretti speaks of, perhaps you know of this sapphire's history." Rossi's smile tightened. "A local legend, nothing more. The scion is said to bring fortune or ruin to those who possess it." "Ruin," Hastings interjected. Falk paused mid-air. "Sounds like bad luck to me. Any truth to it, Signor Moretti?" Moretti's expression grew guarded. "Superstition, Captain. Yet every jewel of value attracts attention. That is why I sought Monsieur Poirot's expertise." The final guest, a Frenchman named Monsieur Julien Lefebvre, leaned forward, his sleek moustache rivaling Poirot's own. A jeweler by trade, his eyes gleamed with avarice. "The scion is no mere trinket," he said, his accent Parisian. "Its clarity, its size, it is a masterpiece. But such treasures, they draw envy. N'est-ce pas?" "Precisement," Poirot murmured, his gaze flitting from face to face. The little grey cells, they were already at work, noting the undercurrents of tension. Claudia's fleeting scowl at Lefebvre, Isabella's anxious fidgeting, Hawthorne's blunt indifference, each was a piece of the puzzle. Dinner proceeded with lively, if strained, conversation. Signora Claudia spoke of the villa's history, her voice smooth, but her words carefully chosen. Isabella, by contrast, was quiet, her eyes often on her father, who seemed distracted, his thoughts elsewhere. As the meal ended, Moretti invited the guests to the terrace for sifts, where the sea stretched dark and endless below. Poirot lingered by the dining-room's French doors, observing. Hastings joined him, sipping a odd lot. "Aren't they?" he whispered. "That Lefebvre chop's got a greedy look about him. And Mrs. Moretti, well, she's a bit frosty, don't you think?" "Frosty, perhaps," Poirot replied softly, "but it is the warmth of hidden passions that interests me. There is a secret here, Hastings, and it is not only about the sapphire. Regard us, the way Signora Claudia watches her husband, the way Isabella avoids the jeweler's gaze. There is a story beneath the surface." As they stepped onto the terrace, a cry pierced the night. Isabella stood by the balustrade, her face pale, pointing to a shadowed corner of the garden below. "There," she gasped. "I saw someone moving in the dark." Moretti rushed to her side, his face ashen. "Nonsense, Cara. The gardens are locked at night." But Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Permettez-moi, signor. A shadow that moves is no mere fancy. With your permission, I shall investigate." The company fell silent, their faces illuminated by the flickering torches. The Villa Celeste, with its beauty and secrets, had begun to reveal its true nature. Hercule Poirot was ready to uncover what lay hidden. Chapter 3. The Sapphire's Shadow. The morning sun bathed Villa Celeste in a golden glow, its rays glinting off the sea and casting dappled light through the lemon trees. Hercule Poirot, impeccably dressed in a cream linen suit, stood in the villa's Grand Salon, where Signor Lorenzo Moretti had gathered his guests for the unveiling of the Scion of Sorrento. The room was a marvel of Italian craftsmanship, with marble floors, gilded mirrors, and a long table draped in white damask, at the center of which stood a velvet-lined case. Captain Hastings, at Poirot's side, whispered, "Quite a show. At Poirot, I say, this sapphire must be something extraordinary to warrant all this fuss." "Mon ami, it is not the sapphire alone that interests me," Poirot replied, his eyes scanning the assembled company. "It is the passions it ignites. Regard as the faces each tells a story of desire or fear." Signor Moretti stepped forward, his silver hair catching the light as he addressed the group. "My friends, today I present to you the Scion of Sorrento, a jewel that has been in my family for 3 centuries. Its beauty is matched only by its legend." With a flourish, he opened the case, revealing a sapphire the size of a quail's egg, its deep blue facets shimmering like the depths of the Tyrrhenian Sea. A collective gasp rose from the guests. Monsieur Julien Lefebvre, the French jeweler, leaned forward, his eyes alight with professional fervor. "Magnifique," he murmured. "Flawless, a perfect star sapphire. Its value is incalculable." Signora Claudia Moretti, standing beside her husband, gave a tight smile. "It is more than a jewel, Monsieur Lefebvre. It is our legacy." Her tone was cool, but Poirot noted the slight tremor in her hand as she adjusted her shawl. Isabella Moretti, pale and silent, stood apart, her gaze fixed on the sapphire as if it were a living thing. Mr. Reginald Hawthorne, the Englishman, snorted. "Very pretty, but what's all this talk of legends? Sounds like a lot of rot to me." "Rot, you say?" Dato Antonio Rossi interjected, adjusting his spectacles. "The Scion has a history, Signor Hawthorne. It is said to have been gifted to the Moretti family by a Medici prince in the 16th century, but at a cost. Betrayal, theft, even murder. Its trail is stained with blood." Mrs. Evelyn Hawthorne shivered theatrically. "How ghastly! Is it true, Signor Moretti, that the sapphire is cursed?" Moretti's face darkened. "Superstitions, Signora, yet it is true that the Scion has been coveted by many. My ancestors guarded it fiercely, and some paid a heavy price." Poirot's mustache twitched as he stepped closer to the sapphire, his gloved hand hovering near the case. "C'est curieux, Signor Moretti. You speak of guarding the jewel, yet you display it so openly. Why now, and why with such a gathering?" Moretti hesitated, his eyes flickering to his wife. "A tradition, Monsieur Poirot. Every generation, we unveil the Scion to reaffirm our stewardship. But I confess, I sought your presence because I fear it may be in danger." "Danger?" Hastings exclaimed. "After that business in the garden last night, I shouldn't wonder. Someone was skulking about, mark my words." The mention of the previous night's incident caused a stir. Isabella's eyes widened, and she clutched her necklace, a simple silver cross. Claudia's lips pressed into a thin line, while Lefebvre's gaze darted to the windows, as if expecting an intruder to appear. Poirot raised a hand for silence. "Messieurs et mesdames, let us be calm. The shadow in the garden, it is but one thread in this tapestry. Signor Moretti, tell me of this jewel's most recent history. Has it been threatened before?" Moretti sighed, his shoulders sagging slightly. 10 years ago, there was an attempt to steal it. A servant a man we trusted disappeared, and with him, a key to the vault. The Scion was recovered, but the incident left us wary. "Wary, yet you invite strangers," Poirot mused, his tone gentle but probing. "Très intéressant. I shall require a tour of the villa, Signor, to understand its vulnerabilities." As Moretti nodded, a sudden crash echoed from the far end of the salon. All eyes turned to see a porcelain vase lying in shards on the floor, its fragments scattered. Near the door, Isabella gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. I didn't touch it," she stammered, though no one had accused her. Poirot's eyes gleamed as he crossed the debris, kneeling with surprising agility. "Tiens, a curious accident, or perhaps not." He lifted a shard, examining it closely, then glanced at the door, slightly ajar. "Hastings, fetch the servant who attends this room. I wish to know who passed through here last." As Hastings hurried off, the guests exchanged uneasy glances. The sapphire, still gleaming in its case, seemed to cast a shadow over the room, a shadow of secrets yet to be unveiled. Chapter 4. A whisper in the night. The moon hung low over Villa Celeste. its silvery light bathing the gardens in an ethereal glow. Hercule Poirot, unable to sleep, stood at the window of his guest room, his keen eyes tracing the shadows of cypress trees swaying in the gentle breeze. The incident of the broken vase had stirred his little grey cells, and the unease of the day lingered like a discordant note in a symphony. Captain Hastings, snoring softly in the adjoining room, was blissfully unaware of the night's secrets. Poirot's attention was drawn to a faint sound, a murmur, like voices carried on the wind. He adjusted his silk dressing gown, slipped on his polished shoes, and stepped onto the balcony, his movements as precise as ever. Below, near the marble fountain, two figures stood close together, their voices hushed but urgent. The distance blurred their features, but Poirot's sharp ears caught fragments of their conversation. "Cannot wait any longer," a woman's voice hissed, sharp with impatience. "It must be tonight." "Patience," a man replied, his tone low and cajoling. "The risk is too great with him here." Poirot's mustache twitched. Him, he presumed, was none other than Hercule Poirot. He strained to hear more, but the voices faded as the figures moved deeper into the garden, swallowed by the shadows. He made a mental note to identify the speakers. Could it be Signora Claudia and the jeweller Lefebvre, or perhaps Isabella and another? The puzzle was growing more intricate. As he turned to re-enter his room, a piercing scream shattered the night. It came from the direction of the Grand Salon. Poirot hurried downstairs, his small frame moving with surprising speed, and found Signor Lorenzo Moretti in the salon, his face ashen, standing before the open velvet case. The scion of Sorrento was gone. "Monsieur Poirot," Moretti cried, his voice trembling, "the sapphire has been stolen." Hastings stumbled into the room, still in his pajamas, his hair disheveled. "Good heavens, Poirot! Stolen? But how? The case was locked, wasn't it?" "Precisement, Hastings," Poirot said, his eyes scanning the room. The other guests began to gather, roused by the commotion. Signora Claudia, her face a mask of shock. Isabella, clutching her robe and trembling. Mr. and Mrs. Hawthorne, muttering indignantly. Dato Rossi, his spectacles askew. And Monsieur Lefebvre, whose expression was curiously unreadable. Poirot knelt beside the case, examining the lock. "Tiens, it is not forced. The thief, they had a key or a skill most remarkable. Signor Moretti, who has access to this case?" "Only I," Moretti replied, his voice hollow. "The key is kept in my study, in a locked drawer. No one else except me," Claudia interrupted sharply, her eyes flashing. "As your wife Lorenzo, I know where you keep it. Are you accusing me?" Nan, Signora," Poirot interjected smoothly, raising a hand. "Accusations, they are premature. But tell me, was the case moved since this morning?" Moretti shook his head. "It remained here, under guard during the day. The servants were instructed to watch it." Poirot's gaze swept the room, noting the heavy curtains, the polished floor, and a faint scuff mark near the French doors leading to the terrace. "Interessant. Hastings, fetch the head servant Giuseppe, I believe. I wish to know who stood guard tonight." As Hastings hurried off, Poirot turned to the guests. "Messieurs et mesdames, remain here, if you please. The thief may still be among us, and Hercule Poirot does not permit a jewel to vanish so easily." Isabella's eyes filled with tears. "It's the curse," she whispered. "The scion always brings ruin." "Nonsense, child," Claudia snapped, but her voice lacked conviction. Lefebvre, meanwhile, studied the empty case with a frown, his fingers twitching as if longing to touch the absent gem. Giuseppe, a wiry man with a nervous demeanor, arrived, bowing to Poirot. "Signore, I swear, I checked the salon at 10 o'clock. The case was secure, the sapphire in place, and after 10, Poirot pressed, his tone gentle but unyielding. Giuseppe hesitated, his eyes darting to Moretti. I was called to the kitchens. A small matter of broken glass. I was gone only minutes. Minutes enough," Poirot murmured. He turned to the group, his voice calm but commanding. "The scion of Sorrento has not left this villa. Of that, I am certain. Tomorrow, we shall uncover the truth. For now, return to your rooms, and lock your doors." As the guests dispersed, their faces etched with suspicion, Poirot lingered, his mind replaying the whispered words from the garden. The sapphire's shadow had grown darker, and the night had revealed a glimpse of the treachery lurking within Villa Celeste. Chapter 5. The Mask of Motives. The morning after the theft of the scion of Sorrento dawned with a restless air. the Villa Celeste cloaked in a mist that curled around its white walls like a shroud. Hercule Poirot seated in the library with its shelves of leather-bound tomes, prepared to unravel the tangled motives of the villa's inhabitants. Captain Hastings, nursing a cup of coffee, sat nearby, his notebook open but his attention wavering. "Poirot," Hastings said, stifling a yawn, "this business is getting murkier by the minute. That sapphire vanishing under our noses decided clever. If you ask me, who do you reckon did it?" "Patience, mon ami," Poirot replied, his grey eyes sharp as he adjusted his pince-nez. "The thief wears a mask, but Hercule Poirot shall remove it. We begin with method by understanding the why. Each guest, they have a reason to desire the scion, or to fear it. Their first visitor was Signora Claudia Moretti, who entered with the grace of a panther, her dark eyes defiant. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, seating herself without invitation, "I trust you do not suspect me of this absurdity. I am the mistress of this house. Why would I steal my own jewel?" Poirot's smile was polite, but probing. "Madame, the question is not only of theft, but of intent. You knew the location of the key. Tell me, have you enemies who might wish to harm your family through the scion?" Claudia's lips tightened. "Enemies, perhaps. My husband's wealth attracts jealousy. But I assure you, I was in my room all night, as Giuseppe can confirm." Her tone was firm, but Poirot noted the slight clench of her fist. Next came Monsieur Julien Lefebvre, the jeweller, his sleek demeanour unruffled despite the early hour. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, bowing slightly, "I am a man of gems, not a thief. The scion's beauty is its value. Why would I destroy my reputation by stealing it?" "Precisement," Monsieur Poirot replied, his gaze piercing. "But a man of your expertise might know how to open a lock without breaking it, and I have heard whispers of debts in Paris, debts that a sapphire might settle." Lefebvre's smile faltered, his hand brushing his mustache. "Rumors, nothing more. My finances are my own affair." Hastings scribbled furiously, muttering, "Shifty fellow, that one." Mr. Reginald Hawthorne was less composed. His ruddy face flushed as he slumped into a chair. "Look here, Poirot. I'm a businessman, not a cat burglar. Came here to discuss a deal with Moretti shipping contracts, that sort of thing. That sapphire's no use to me." "Yet you are in need of funds, Nan," Poirot said mildly. "Your company, it struggles. A jewel of such value could tempt even the most honest man." Hawthorne bristled. "Now see here. My wife and I were in bed by 10. Ask Evelyn, she'd tell you." Mrs. Evelyn Hawthorne, when summoned, was sharp and defensive. "Reginald's right," she snapped. "We were together all night. And frankly, Monsieur Poirot, I find this inquisition tiresome. Why not question that nervous girl, Isabella? She's been jumpy as a cat since we arrived." Isabella Moretti, when she appeared, was indeed a picture of nerves, her fingers twisting the silver cross at her throat. "I didn't take it," she whispered before Poirot could speak. "I swear, Monsieur, the sign. It frightens me. Ever since I was a child, I've heard stories of its curse." Mademoiselle Poirot said gently, "Fear can be a motive as powerful as greed. Tell me, what did you see in the garden 2 nights ago, and why do you avoid Monsieur Lefebvre's gaze?" Isabella's eyes widened, but she shook her head. I don't know what you mean. I saw a shadow, that's all. As for Monsieur Lefebvre, he makes me uneasy. His talk of the sapphire, it's too eager." Last came Dr. Antonio Rossi, his scholarly air tinged with unease. "I am a physician, Monsieur Poirot, not a criminal," he said, adjusting his spectacles. "I have no interest in jewels, only in my work." "Yet you know the scion's history," Poirot noted. "And you were seen near the salon yesterday, before the vase was broken. Perhaps you saw something or someone." Rossi hesitated, then sighed. "I saw nothing unusual, but I heard Signora Claudia arguing with her husband in the afternoon, something about money and trust. I thought it private, so I said nothing." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Merci, Doctor. The truth, it begins to emerge, like a picture from a fog." As Rossi left, Hastings leaned forward. "Well, Poirot, they're all hiding something, aren't they? Claudia's too proud, Lefebvre's too smooth, and that Hawthorne chop's got a temper. But what about the girl? She's scared stiff." "Oui, Hastings," Poirot said, tapping his temple. "Each wears a mask, but the motives, they are becoming clear. Greed, fear, betrayal, they circle the scion, like moths to a flame. We must now look closer at the villa itself." The answer lies not only in words, but in the silent clues left behind. As they rose to inspect the salon once more, a distant clatter echoed from the hallway, a sound like glass breaking. Poirot's head snapped up, his expression alert. "A long way, Hastings. The Villa Celeste. It speaks to us again." Chapter 6. The broken alabaster. The clatter that echoed through Villa Celeste led Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings to the villa's sunlit atrium, where a small alabaster statue of a nymph lay in pieces on the marble floor. The delicate figure, once poised gracefully on a pedestal near the staircase, was now a jumble of fragments, its serene face cracked in two. A small crowd had gathered. Signor Lorenzo Moretti, his face taut with frustration; Signora Claudia, her expression unreadable; and Giuseppe, the head servant, wringing his hands nervously. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, kneeling beside the wreckage with the precision of a surgeon. "Another accident, n'est-ce pas? Or perhaps something more." His gloved fingers sifted through the debris, his grey eyes sharp as they scanned each shard. Hastings, standing behind him, scratched his head. "Bad luck, this place, Poirot. First a vase, now a statue. Clumsy lot, these Italians, or is someone up to mischief?" "Nan," Hastings Poirot replied, his voice low. "The clumsy, they do not leave such precise clues. Regardless." He held up a small fragment of alabaster, its edge stained with a faint smear of blue, almost imperceptible, but to Poirot's keen eye unmistakable. "This is no ordinary mark. It is Dio, a trace of paint, perhaps, or something more significant." Signor Moretti stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "Monsieur Poirot, this is merely a mishap. The statue was old, the pedestal unstable. Why concern yourself with such trifles when the scion is still missing?" Poirot rose, brushing his hands with a handkerchief. "Trifles, signor. To Hercule Poirot, there are no trifles in a mystery. This statue, it stood near the salon, close to the path of the thief, perhaps. Tell me, who passed through this atrium last night, after the theft?" Giuseppe, still hovering nervously, cleared his throat. "Signore, I was here, cleaning after midnight. I saw no one, I swear. The statue was intact when I left." "And yet," Poirot said, his tone gentle but probing, "it is broken now." "Interessant. Giuseppe, you will show me the cleaning supplies used last night. There may be a connection." As Giuseppe scurried off, Signora Claudia folded her arms, her voice sharp. "Really, Monsieur Poirot, you make too much of this. The scion is gone, and you waste time on broken ornaments." Poirot's eyes twinkled. "Madame, the smallest detail can illuminate the darkest mystery. This blue mark, it is not of the statue. It suggests interference. Someone was here, perhaps in haste, after the theft." Isabella Moretti, who had joined the group silently, gasped softly. "You think the thief dropped something, or left a clue on purpose?" Pater Poirot said, studying her pale face. "Mademoiselle, you seem troubled. Did you pass through this atrium last night, after the commotion in the salon?" Isabella shook her head, her fingers clutching her silver cross. "No, I was in my room. I couldn't sleep, but I stayed there. I heard footsteps, though, outside my door, around 1 o'clock. "Footsteps," Poirot repeated, his interest piqued. "And you did not investigate?" "I was afraid," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "After the theft, I thought it might be dangerous." Hastings, ever eager, leaned forward. "Footsteps, could be our thief, Poirot, skulking about, dropping statues in their hurry to get away." "Calmez-vous, Hastings," Poirot said, his tone calm but firm. "The thief, they are clever, but not infallible. This blue marquette is a thread in the tapestry. We must find its source." As the group dispersed, Poirot lingered, examining the pedestal. It was sturdy, not the sort to topple easily. He traced a finger along its base, noting a faint scratch, as if something heavy had brushed against it. His mind returned to the whispered conversation he had overheard in the garden. The urgency of the woman's voice, the man's caution, the blue mark, the scratch, the footsteps, they were pieces of a puzzle, and Poirot was determined to fit them together. He turned to Hastings, who was watching with barely concealed impatience. "Mon ami, we shall visit the servants' quarters. Next, the cleaning supplies. They may hold the key to this blue mystery. And then, we must learn more of these footsteps. The Villa Celeste, it is full of echoes, and Hercule Poirot shall hear them all." As they moved toward the servants' wing, A distant cry from the garden caught Poirot's attention, a sharp, startled sound, quickly silenced. His moustache twitched. The villa was speaking again, and its secrets were growing restless. Chapter 7. Tangled lies. The air in Villa Celeste's library was thick with the scent of old leather and wax polish, a fitting backdrop for Hercule Poirot's relentless pursuit of truth. The morning sun filtered through heavy drapes, casting long shadows as Poirot sat at a carved oak desk, his notebook open, his pen poised like a conductor's baton. Captain Hastings paced nearby, his brow furrowed with the effort of keeping up with Poirot's rapid deductions. "Dash it all, Poirot," Hastings said, pausing to adjust his tie. "This case is a proper muddle. That blue mark on the statue, those footsteps Isabella heard. Everyone's got a story, but none of them match up." "Precisement, Hastings," Poirot replied, his grey eyes gleaming. "The lies, they are like threads in a poorly woven cloth. Pull one, and the whole begins to unravel. Let us examine these alibis with care, for the thief of the Scion of Sorrento hides among them." Their first interrogation of the day was with Giuseppe, the head servant, who entered with a nervous bow. "Signore Poirot," he said, his hands twisting, "I told you all I know. I was in the kitchens after midnight, dealing with the broken glass. I swear, the salon was secure when I left." Poirot's gaze was unyielding. "And this broken glass, Giuseppe, who reported it? And what of the cleaning supplies? The blue mark on the alabaster, could it be from a polish or paint you use?" Giuseppe paled. "It was Signora Claudia who called me to the kitchens. A wineglass," she said, "dropped by accident. As for the supplies, we use only standard polishes, no blue color, I swear." "Interessant," Poirot murmured, making a note. "And these footsteps Mademoiselle Isabella heard, did you hear anything unusual in the corridors?" "Nothing, signore," Giuseppe insisted, but his eyes darted to the door, betraying unease. Next came Monsieur Julien Lefebvre, his Parisian charm undimmed, despite the scrutiny. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, settling into a chair with ease, "I was in my room all night, reviewing my notes on the Scion's appraisal. I heard no footsteps, no screams, nothing." "Yet you were seen near the salon yesterday afternoon," Poirot said smoothly. "And your interest in the sapphire, it is intense. Tell me, monsieur, have you ever handled a lock like the one on the case?" Lefebvre's smile tightened. "I am a jeweler, not a locksmith. As for the salon, I merely passed by to admire the villa's art. Surely that is no crime." Hastings muttered under his breath, "Slippery as an eel, that one." Signor Lorenzo Moretti was next, his face etched with worry. "Monsieur Poirot, I was with my wife in our suite after the unveiling. We retired early, exhausted by the day's events. I heard nothing until the scream about the theft." "And the key to the case?" Poirot pressed. "You say it was in your study, yet Signora Claudia knew its location. Could another have accessed it?" Moretti hesitated. "It's possible. The study is not always locked, but only Claudia and I knew where the key was kept. Signora Claudia, when summoned, was defiant. I was with Lorenzo all night," she said, her voice sharp. "And yes, I called Giuseppe to the kitchens. A trivial matter, a spilled glass. You cannot suspect me, Monsieur Poirot. I have no reason to steal what is already mine." Madame Poirot said, his tone gentle but firm. "The motive, it is not always ownership. Perhaps it is to protect or to conceal. You argued with your husband yesterday, Nan, about money. Perhaps." Claudia's eyes flashed. "That was private, a family matter, nothing to do with the sapphire. The final interview was with Mr. and Mrs. Hawthorne." Reginald Hawthorne blustered. "We were in our room, as I told you. Evelyn can vouch for me. This whole affair is a waste of time, probably some servant's doing." Mrs. Hawthorne nodded vigorously. "Quite right. We heard nothing, saw nothing, though I did see that Date or Rossi lingering near the atrium before dinner. Odd, don't you think?" Poirot's moustache twitched. "Mercy, madame. Every detail, it builds the picture." As the Hawthorns left, Hastings slumped into a chair. "They're all covering something, Poirot. Giuseppe's jumpy, Claudia's hiding an argument, Lefebvre's too smooth, and Moretti's not telling us everything. Even the Hawthorns seem shifty." "We, Hastings," Poirot said, closing his notebook with a snap. "The alibis, they contradict. Giuseppe says Claudia called him to the kitchens, yet she claims it was a trivial spill. Lefebvre denies being near the salon, yet Rossi saw someone there, and the footsteps someone moved through the villa after midnight. We must now seek Dr. Rossi again, for he has been too quiet." As they prepared to summon the physician, a soft knock interrupted them. Isabella stood at the door, her face pale. "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered. I found something. In the atrium, near where the statue fell. It was hidden under a rug." She held out a small object, a tiny vial, its glass stained with a faint blue residue. Poirot's eyes gleamed as he took it, turning it in the light. "Formidable, mademoiselle. It is no accident. The science thief, they grow careless." Hastings gaped. "Good Lord, Poirot, is that the source of the blue mark?" Pater Poirot said, his voice low. "The lies they tangle, but Hercule Poirot shall cut through them. Come, Hastings, we have a vial to examine, and a thief to unmask." Chapter 8. The Garden of Deceptions, the Gardens of Villa Celeste. Bathed in the soft light of late morning, were a labyrinth of manicured hedges, blooming oleanders, and marble statues glistening with dew. Hercule Poirot, his cream suit pristine, despite the humid air, led Captain Hastings along a gravel path, the tiny blue-stained vial from Isabella tucked safely in his pocket. The weight of the investigation pressed upon him, each clue a thread in a tapestry of deceit. "Hastings," Poirot said, his voice measured. "The villa, it is a stage, and its players conceal their true roles. This vial, with its blue residue, it links the broken alabaster to the theft of the scion, but we must tread carefully the garden. It holds secrets of its own." Hastings, mopping his brow with a handkerchief, nodded. "Righto, Poirot, that vial's a queer find. Do you think it's poison, or some sort of chemical the thief used?" Pater Poirot replied, his eyes scanning the surroundings. "But first, we seek the source of that cry we heard yesterday. The garden, it calls to us." They followed the path toward the marble fountain where Poirot had overheard the whispered conversation 2 nights prior. The air was heavy with the scent of jasmine, but an undercurrent of unease lingered. As they rounded a corner, Hastings stopped short, his face pulling. "Good heavens, Poirot, look there!" Half hidden among the ferns, beneath the shade of a lemon tree, lay a crumpled figure, a man, his dark suit stained with earth, his face obscured by foliage. Poirot hurried forward, his movements precise, and knelt beside the body. It was Giuseppe, the head servant, his eyes wide with shock, a thin trickle of blood at his temple. In his clenched hand was a scrap of paper, crumpled and torn. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, gently prying the paper free. "He is dead, Hastings. A blow to the head, not long ago, perhaps this morning. The killer, they are bold." Hastings, shaken, peered over Poirot's shoulder. "Poor chap, but what's that paper? A clue, do you think?" Poirot unfolded the scrap, revealing a few scrawled words in Italian. "Non dire nulla, il segreto, say nothing. The secret." The ink was smudged, as if written in haste. Poirot's mustache twitched. "C'est grave, Hastings. Giuseppe knew something dangerous. This secret, it is tied to the discovery drew the household to the garden. Signor Lorenzo Moretti arrived first, his face ashen. "Giuseppe, my God, what has happened?" he cried, clutching the arm of Signora Claudia, who stood rigid, her eyes darting to the body. "A tragedy," Signor Poirot said, rising, "but not an accident. Giuseppe was murdered, and this note suggests he knew too much. Tell me, did he speak to you of any concerns?" Moretti shook his head, dazed. "He was loyal, always discreet. I cannot imagine." Claudia's voice cut through, sharp and cold. "He was a servant, nothing more. Why would he hold secrets? You're chasing shadows." Monsieur Poirot's gaze lingered on her. "Madame, shadows often hide the truth. This vial," he produced it from his pocket, "was found near the broken statue. Its blue residue matches the mark on the alabaster. Did Giuseppe ever handle such a substance?" Claudia's eyes flickered, but she shook her head. "I know nothing of it. Ask the other servants." Monsieur Julien Lefebvre, arriving with Isabella, gasped at the sight. "Mon Dieu, a murder! This villa is cursed." His hand trembled, betraying his polished facade. Isabella, clinging to Lefebvre's arm, whispered, "It's the sire. It brings death, just as I feared." Mr. and Mrs. Hawthorne joined the group, their expressions a mix of shock and indignation. "This is outrageous," Reginald Hawthorne bellowed. "First a theft, now a murder. Moretti, what kind of place are you running?" Dr. Antonio Rossi, summoned to examine the body, knelt beside Giuseppe, his face grim. "A single blow, precise and forceful," he said. Death was quick, likely within the hour. No weapon nearby, but the ground is disturbed. Someone fled in haste. Poirot nodded, his mind racing. Mercy Tor, the garden. It is indeed a place of deceptions. This murder shifts our inquiry. The thief of the scion, they are now a killer, and their motive grows clearer. Hastings, still staring at the body, muttered, "But who, Poirot? Everyone's got an alibi or a lie, and that note, what secret was Giuseppe keeping?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The secret, Hastings. It is the key. We must search Giuseppe's quarters, and we must learn who was in this garden at dawn. The scion of Sorrento, it is not far, and its thief grows desperate." As the group dispersed, instructed by Poirot to remain in the villa, he lingered by the fountain, his fingers tracing its edge. The whispered voices he had heard here nights ago echoed in his memory. It must be tonight. The garden had revealed a darker truth, and Hercule Poirot was closer to unmasking the deception at its heart. Chapter 9. The Silent Servant. The Villa Celeste, despite its sunlit splendor, seemed to hold its breath in the wake of Giuseppe's murder. Hercule Poirot, his expression grave, led Captain Hastings to the servants' quarters, a modest wing tucked behind the villa's opulent facade. The air was heavy with the scent of lavender polish, but an undercurrent of fear lingered among the staff. Their whispers hushed as the detective passed. "Poor Giuseppe," Hastings said, his voice low as they navigated the narrow corridor. "He must have stumbled onto something dangerous, Poirot. That note, say nothing. The secret, it's chilling, don't you think?" "Oui, Hastings," Poirot replied, his grey eyes alert. Giuseppe's silence was his undoing, but another may yet speak. "The servants, they see what the masters overlook. We seek one who is quiet, yet observant." They found her in the laundry room, a slight figure folding linens with meticulous care. Maria, a maid of middle years, had a face lined with quiet resilience, her dark eyes wary as Poirot approached. She curtsied, her hands trembling slightly. "Mademoiselle Maria Poirot," began, his tone gentle. "I am Hercule Poirot, and this is Captain Hastings. We seek the truth about the scion of Sorrento and poor Giuseppe's fate. You were close to him, Nan. He spoke of you as a trusted friend." Maria's lips pressed into a thin line, her gaze dropping to the linens. "Giuseppe was kind," she said softly, her Italian accent thick. "But he kept to himself lately. Afraid, I think." "Afraid of what?" Poirot pressed, his voice coaxing. "You have served the Moretti family many years. You know their secrets. Tell me, what troubled Giuseppe?" Maria hesitated, her fingers tightening on a sheet. "Signore, I do not gossip. It is not my place." Hastings, impatient, leaned forward. "Come now, Maria, a man's dead. If you know something, you must tell us. Was it about the sapphire?" Poirot raised a hand to quiet Hastings, his eyes never leaving Maria's face. "Mademoiselle, a secret kept can be a burden. Giuseppe's note spoke of a secret he was to keep silent about. Did he share it with you?" Maria's eyes flickered, with something fear perhaps, or guilt. She glanced toward the door, ensuring they were alone, then spoke in a whisper. He said the scion was not what it seemed, that it hid a shame, something from long ago. He heard Signor Moretti and Signora Claudia arguing about it, weeks ago. Something about a debt to the past." Poirot's mustache twitched. "Formidable, a debt to the past. You say, did Giuseppe speak of this shame, or of anyone else involved?" Maria shook her head, her voice barely audible. "He would not say more, only that he saw something in the study, something he shouldn't have. He was afraid of her." Her Poirot's tone sharpened. "You mean Signora Claudia?" Maria's eyes widened, and she crossed herself. "I say too much, Signore. Please, I have work." Before Poirot could press further, a sharp voice interrupted. Signora Claudia stood in the doorway, her face a mask of controlled fury. "Maria, what are you doing? You should be preparing the guest rooms, not chattering with Monsieur Poirot." Maria flinched, murmuring an apology as she hurried away. Claudia turned to Poirot, her eyes cold. "Monsieur, you overstep. Questioning my servants without my permission is unacceptable." "Pardonnez-moi," Madame Poirot said smoothly, bowing slightly. "But a murder and a theft demand answers." Maria's words, they suggest a secret tied to the Sienna, secret Giuseppe died for. "Perhaps you can enlighten me." Claudia's jaw tightened. "I know nothing of secrets. Giuseppe was a servant, prone to exaggeration. You waste your time with his fantasies." As she swept out, Hastings whistled softly. "She's hiding something, Poirot. That look, she's as guilty as sin." "Nan, Hastings," Poirot said, his voice thoughtful. "Not guilt, perhaps, but fear. The secret Maria speaks of, it is old, buried deep in the Moretti family. We must now search Giuseppe's quarters. If he saw something in the study, there may be evidence." They found Giuseppe's small room at the end of the corridor, its Spartan furnishings revealing little at first glance. Poirot, with his methodical precision, examined every detail: the narrow bed, the wooden chest, a worn Bible on the nightstand. Beneath the pillow, he found a small notebook, its pages filled with Giuseppe's cramped handwriting. "Tiens," Poirot murmured, flipping through it. Most entries were mundane schedules, tasks, but one caught his eye, dated a week prior. The letter in the study. "It changes everything. I must tell someone, but who can I trust?" Hastings peered over his shoulder. "A letter. That's it, isn't it? Something in Moretti's study, proof of this debt to the past." "Exactement," Poirot said, closing the notebook. "The study. It is the heart of this mystery. We shall go there next, but with care. The killer. They watch us, and the scion's secret grows heavier." As they left the servants' quarters, a faint rustle came from the corridor's end, as if someone had retreated into the shadows. Poirot's eyes narrowed, his mind alive with possibilities. The silent servant had spoken, and her words had opened a door to the past, one that someone was desperate to keep closed. Chapter 10. The clock strikes midnight. The grand salon of Villa Celeste was a stage set for drama, its chandelier casting a golden glow over the assembled company. As the ormolu clock on the mantel struck midnight, Hercule Poirot stood at the center, his small frame commanding despite the tension in the air. Captain Hastings hovered near the French doors, his notebook clutched tightly, sensing the weight of the moment. The guests, Signor Lorenzo Moretti, Signora Claudia, Isabella, Monsieur Julien Lefebvre, Mr. and Mrs. Hawthorne, and Dato Antonio Rossi sat in a semicircle, their faces a mix of apprehension and defiance. "Messieurs et Madame," Poirot began, his voice clear and measured. "We are gathered to confront the truth behind the theft of the scion of Sorrento and the murder of Giuseppe. The threads of this mystery, lies, secrets, and clues have woven a tapestry, and tonight Hercule Poirot shall reveal its pattern." Signor Moretti shifted uncomfortably. "Monsieur Poirot, do you mean to say you know who took the sapphire, and who killed Giuseppe?" "Patience, Signor," Poirot said, raising a hand. "The little grey cells, they have been at work. Let us review. The scion was stolen from a locked case, with no sign of forced entry. A blue-stained vial, found by Mademoiselle Isabella, matches a mark on the broken alabaster statue. Giuseppe, poor soul, was murdered after discovering a secret hinted at in his note. Say nothing. The secret. And in his notebook, he wrote of a letter in your study, Signor Moretti." Claudia's eyes flashed. "This is nonsense. You accuse us based on a servant's scribbles." "Nan," Madame Poirot replied, his tone calm but unyielding. "I accuse no one yet. But the letter, it is key. Signor Moretti, what is this document Giuseppe saw?" Moretti's face paled. I keep many papers in my study. Business dealings, family records. I cannot know what he meant." Poirot's gaze sharpened, vehement. "Then let us consider the alibis. Signora Claudia, you claim you were with your husband all night, yet you called Giuseppe to the kitchens for a spilled glass. Monsieur Lefebvre, you were in your room, but seen near the salon. Monsieur and Madame Hawthorne, you vouch for each other, yet your financial troubles suggest a motive. Dotto Rossi, you heard an argument between the Morettis, yet kept silent. And Mademoiselle Isabella, you heard footsteps, yet did not act." Isabella clutched her silver cross, her voice trembling. "I was afraid, Monsieur Poirot. I told you the truth." "Perhaps," Poirot said, his eyes softening. "But someone here lies. The blue vial, it is no cleaning agent, it is a chemical, perhaps used to tamper with the lock. And Giuseppe's murder, it was to silence his knowledge of this letter." Lefebvre leaned forward, his voice sharp. "You have no proof, Monsieur Poirot. This is speculation." Before Poirot could respond, a sharp gasp came from the doorway. Maria, the silent maid, stood there, her face ashen, holding a folded letter. "Signore Poirot," she whispered, I found this in Giuseppe's Bible, hidden after you searched his room. I was afraid to give it to you earlier." Poirot took the letter, his fingers steady as he unfolded it. The paper was old, yellowed, bearing the Moretti crest. He read silently, his expression unreadable, then looked up. Mon Dieu, this changes everything. The letter speaks of a debtor promise made by a Moretti ancestor, tied to the scion's origins. It suggests the sapphire was not rightfully theirs. Moretti leapt to his feet. That's preposterous. The scion has been ours for centuries. Claudia gripped his arm, her voice low. Lorenzo, enough. Say no more. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Madame, you knew of this letter. Nan. Giuseppe found it, and it cost him his life. But who else knew, and who would kill to keep it hidden? A tense silence fell, broken only by the clock's final chime. Then, from the terrace beyond the French doors, a shadow moved, a figure, fleeting but unmistakable, darting into the garden. Hastings sprang toward the door. Poirot, someone's out there. Along why? Poirot cried, his voice sharp. The thief, they are near, and the truth is closer still. The guests erupted into chaos, accusations flying as Poirot and Hastings rushed into the night. The letter clutched in Poirot's hand. The scion's secret had surfaced, but the killer was still at large, and the midnight confrontation had only deepened the mystery. Chapter 11. The weight of truth. The night air was cool and fragrant as Hercules. Poirot and Captain Hastings pursued the fleeting shadow into the gardens of Villa Celeste. The moon cast eerie patterns through the cypress trees, and the crunch of gravel underfoot was the only sound as they searched for the figure that had vanished from the terrace. Poirot clutched the old letter from Giuseppe's Bible, its words a promise of a debt tied to the scion of Sorrento burning in his mind. Hastings, Poirot whispered, his voice low but urgent, stay close. The killer is desperate, and desperation makes them dangerous. Hastings, gripping a heavy walking stick, nodded grimly. Right, Poirot, but dash it, that shadow could have been anyone. Lefebvre, Claudia, even Rossi. Patience, mon ami, Poirot said, his eyes scanning the darkness. The little grey cells, they align the clues. The blue vial, the broken alabaster, Giuseppe's note, and now this letter. They point to a truth buried in the Moretti family's past. Their search was cut short by a cry from the villa, sharp and panicked, echoing from the direction of the Grand Salon. Poirot's head snapped up, his mustache twitching. Mon Dieu, another calamity. A long way, Hastings. They hurried back to find the guests in disarray, gathered around the salon's fireplace. Isabella Moretti stood trembling, her face pale, pointing to a small table where a silver candelabrum lay toppled, its candles scattered beside it. A pool of dark liquid glistened on the floor, and a faint acrid smell hung in the air. Poison, Isabella gasped, clutching her silver cross. I was reaching for a glass of water, and I knocked over the candelabrum. That liquid it spilled from a vial hidden beneath it. Poirot knelt swiftly, examining the scene. The liquid matched the blue residue of the vial Isabella had found earlier, its sharp odor suggesting a chemical compound. Cest grave, he murmured. This is no accident. Someone intended harm, perhaps to silence another. Signor Lorenzo Moretti, his face haggard, stammered, Monsieur Poirot, what does this mean? First Giuseppe, now this. It means, Poirot said, rising, that the thief of the scion is not content with theft and murder. They seek to eliminate threats. This vial, it is identical to the one found in the atrium. The blue substance, it may be a corrosive agent, used to tamper with the sapphire's case or worse. Signora Claudia, her composure fraying, snapped, this is madness. You accuse us all, yet you have no proof. Madame Poirot replied, his tone icy. The proof is in the pattern. The letter from Giuseppe's Bible speaks of a debtor promise made by your ancestor to another family, claiming the scion was stolen, not gifted. Giuseppe discovered this, and it cost him his life. Now, someone fears exposure. Monsieur Lefebvre, his usual polish strained, interjected, you go too far. A letter proves nothing. And this poison, how do you know it was meant for anyone here? Poirot's eyes gleamed. Because, monsieur, it was placed where someone would reach a glass of water, a common act. The intended victim, they are, among us. Mr. Reginald Hawthorne, red-faced, pounded his fist on the table. This is intolerable. First a theft, then a murder, and now poison. Moretti, your cursed sapphire has brought nothing but trouble. Mrs. Evelyn Hawthorne clutched her husband's arm, her voice shrill. Reggie, hush. Monsieur Poirot, surely you can't suspect us. We've no reason to meddle with poisons. Dator Antonio Rossi, silent until now, adjusted his spectacles. The liquid, he said cautiously, could be a cyanide compound, diluted to avoid detection. As a physician, I've seen such substances. But who here has access to such things? Poirot turned to Isabella, who shrank under his gaze. Mademoiselle, you found the first vial, and now this. Tell me, did you see anyone near this table tonight, before the candelabrum fell? Isabella shook her head, tears welling. No, I swear, I only came for water, but I saw someone earlier, near the study, before we gathered. I couldn't see who, it was too dark. Hastings whispered. The shadow again, Poirot. The same one we chased, Pater Poirot said, his mind racing. He addressed the group, his voice commanding. Messieurs, et madame, the scion remains in this villa, and the killer walks among us. This second crime, it is a warning. I shall search the study now, for the letter's origins must be uncovered. As the guests murmured, uneasy, motioned to Hastings. Come, mon ami. The weight of truth presses heavily, and we must lift it before another falls. They moved toward Moretti's study, but as they reached the corridor, a faint creak came from above a floorboard. Perhaps, in the upper rooms, Poirot's eyes narrowed. The villa was alive with secrets, and the truth was perilously close to slipping away. Chapter 12. The sapphires cursed the study of Signor Lorenzo Moretti was a sanctuary of dark wood and leather, its shelves lined with ancient volumes and a heavy desk dominating the room. Hercule Poirot stood at its center, the faint creak from the upper floor still echoing in his mind. The letter from Giuseppe's Bible, now tucked safely in his pocket, had hinted at a scandal tied to the scion of Sorrento, a debt from the past that had sparked theft, murder, and now an attempt at poison. Captain Hastings, ever loyal, stood by the door, his eyes darting nervously to the shadows. Poirot, Hastings whispered, clutching his walking stick. This place gives me the creeps. That creak upstairs, do you think the killer's still prowling about? Calmez-vous. Hastings, Poirot replied, his voice steady as he examined the desk. The killer, they are close, but the little grey cells, they are closer still. This study holds the key to the scion's curse, and we shall find it. Poirot's gloved fingers traced the desk's surface, noting its locked drawers. With Moretti's reluctant permission, he used a small key provided by the signor to open them. Inside one, beneath a stack of ledgers, he found a hidden compartment containing a bundle of old letters, their wax seals cracked but bearing the same crest as the one from Giuseppe's Bible. He unfolded the topmost letter, its ink faded but legible, dated 1653. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured, his eyes scanning the text. Acotes Hastings, this letter is from a Giovanni Moretti to a family called De Luca. It confesses that the scion of Sorrento, claimed by the Morettis as a Medici gift, was stolen from the De Lucas during a feud. A promise was made to return it, but it was never honored. Hastings gaped. Stolen. So the Morettis have been sitting on a pilfered jewel for centuries. No wonder Giuseppe was killed. He must have found this. Precisement, Poirot said, his mustache twitching. This vendetta, it festers. The De Lucas, they may still seek retribution, and someone in this villa knows this history. As Poirot replaced the letters, the door burst open, and Signor Moretti entered, his face pale. Monsieur Poirot, what have you found? Those letters, private family matters, surely. Private. Signor Poirot's tone was sharp. They are the heart of this mystery. The scion's curse is no superstition, it is the weight of a theft unacknowledged. Giuseppe discovered this, and it led to his death. Tell me, who else knew of these letters? Moretti sank into a chair, his hands trembling. Only Claudia, and perhaps Isabella, though I never spoke of it directly. The shame of it I thought it buried. Before Poirot could respond, Signora Claudia appeared, her eyes blazing. Lorenzo, you fool. You should have burned those letters years ago. She turned to Poirot, her voice icy. You meddle in things you don't understand, monsieur. The scion is ours, curse or no curse. Poirot's gaze was unyielding. Madame, the curse is not the sapphire, but the lies it conceals. Someone in this Villa de Luca, perhaps, or one driven by their corstol, the scion, and killed Giuseppe to protect this secret. And now, with the poisoned vial, they seek to silence another. A soft gasp came from the doorway. Isabella stood there, her face ashen. A De Luca. But that's impossible. They're gone, aren't they? Father, you said the family died out. Moretti avoided her gaze, his voice low. I thought so, Cara, but there are rumors. A descendant, perhaps, living quietly in Sorrento. Hastings, unable to contain himself, exclaimed, Good Lord, Poirot, a vendetta across centuries. Could one of the guests be a DeLuca in disguise? Pate, Poirot said, his mind racing. Monsieur Lefebvre with his keen interest in the sapphire, or Darto Rossi, with his knowledge of local history, either could have a hidden lineage, or perhaps it is another, working in the shadows. A sudden thud from above interrupted them, followed by a muffled cry. Poirot's head snapped up. A long wire, Hastings. The villa speaks again, and we must listen. They rushed upstairs, Moretti and Claudia trailing behind. In the corridor near Isabella's room, they found a small table overturned, a vase shattered, and a faint smear of blue on the floor, underfloried identical to the residue from the vials. But no one was there. C'est incroyable, Poirot muttered, kneeling to examine the smear. The killer, they are reckless now, leaving their mark. The scion is near, and so is the truth. As they returned to the study, Poirot's mind churned. The DeLuca vendetta, the poisoned vial, the stolen sapphire, all were linked by a single thread, a secret someone would kill to protect. The final tableau was approaching, and Hercule Poirot was ready to unveil the culprit. Chapter 13. The final tableau, the Grand Salon of Villa Celeste, was once again the stage for Hercule Poirot's denouement, its chandelier casting a warm glow over the tense faces of the assembled company. The clock had long since passed midnight, and the air was thick with anticipation. Poirot stood at the center, his small frame radiating authority, his grey eyes sharp as he surveyed Signor Lorenzo Moretti, Signora Claudia, Isabella, Monsieur Julien Lefebvre, Mr. and Mrs. Hawthorne, and Dator Antonio Rossi. Captain Hastings stood by his side, notebook in hand, his expression a mix of awe and impatience. Messieurs, et Madame, Poirot began, his voice clear and resonant. The mystery of the scion of Sorrento is solved. The theft of the sapphire, the murder of Giuseppe, the poisoned vial are threads in a tapestry of deceit, woven by a hand both cunning and desperate. Tonight, Hercule Poirot shall reveal the truth. Signor Moretti leaned forward, his face pale. Monsieur Poirot, you have found the scion, and Giuseppe's killer. Oui, Signor, Poirot replied, his moustache twitching. But first, let us unravel the clues. The scion was stolen from a locked case, with no sign of force, only a key or skill could open it. A blue-stained vial, found by Mademoiselle Isabella, matched a mark on the broken alabaster statue. Giuseppe's note spoke of a secret, and a letter in his Bible revealed the scion was stolen from the DeLuca family centuries ago. A second vial, poisoned, suggested another intended victim. And now, a final clue, a smear of blue in the upstairs corridor, points to the killer's carelessness. Claudia's eyes flashed. This is absurd. You spin tales, monsieur, but where is the proof? Patience, Madame Poirot said, raising a hand. The proof lies in the pattern. The little grey cells, they have worked tirelessly. Let us begin with the theft. The scion was taken not for greed, but to right a wronger, so the thief believed. The letter in the study, discovered by Giuseppe, exposed the Moretti family's theft of the sapphire from the DeLucas. Giuseppe, loyal but curious, was silenced for it. Isabella gasped, clutching her silver cross. But who, Monsieur Poirot, who would kill for such an old grudge? Poirot's gaze swept the room, settling on Dator Antonio Rossi. Dator, you have been quiet, yet you know Sorrento's history well. You spoke of the scion's legend, but you omitted a own heritage. You are a DeLucanan, a descendant of the family wronged by the Morettis. Rossi's spectacles glinted as he stiffened. Preposterous. I am a physician, not a vengeful heir. Vehement, Poirot said, his tone gentle but unyielding. Yet you were seen near the salon before the theft, and near the atrium when the statue fell. The blue residue on the violet is a medical compound, a cyanide derivative you, as a doctor, could procure. You stole the scion to reclaim your family's honor, and when Giuseppe overheard you planning with another perhaps in the garden, you killed him to keep your secret. The room erupted in murmurs. Rossi's face flushed, but before he could speak, Claudia stood, her voice trembling with rage. You accuse him without evidence. And what of this second vial? Who was it meant for? Poirot's eyes gleamed. Madame, the second vial was a distraction, desperate act to shift suspicion. But here is the twist. You, Signora Claudia, were complicit. You knew of the De Luca claim, for you argued with your husband about the letters. You feared exposure would ruin your family's name. You did not steal the scion, but you helped conceal the truth, calling Giuseppe to the kitchens to give Rossi time to act. Claudia staggered back, her face ashen. No, I would never. Silence. Voice cut through like a blade. The footsteps Isabella heard. The shadow in the garden. It was you, meeting Rossi to plan. The blue vial. It was your idea, Nan. A chemist's trick to open the lock without force, and later, to poison another who might suspect, perhaps Isabella, who found the first vial. Isabella sobbed. Mother, no, how could you? Moretti clutched his head, his voice breaking. Claudia, is this true? Before she could answer, Rossi leapt to his feet, his calm facade shattered. Enough. Yes, I am a De Luca. The sun was ours, stolen by your greedy ancestors. I took it to restore justice, but Giuseppe, he heard me speaking to Claudia. I had no choice. Hastings gasped. Good Lord, Poirot, you were right. Poirot nodded, producing a small velvet pouch from his pocket. The scion. It was hidden in your medical bag. Dator wrapped in cloth stained with the same blue residue. I found it this evening, while you thought me distracted. Rossi lunged for the door, but Hastings, quick for once, blocked his path. Not so fast, you blackguard. As Rossi was restrained, Claudia sank into a chair, tears streaming. I only wanted to protect our name, she whispered. I didn't know he would kill. Poirot's expression softened. Madame, the truth. It is painful, but it heals. The scion shall be returned to the De Luca heirs, if any remain, and justice shall be served. The guests sat in stunned silence as Rossi was led away by local authorities. Summoned by Moretti, Isabella embraced her father, who promised to make amends for their family's past. The scion of Sorrento, its curse lifted by truth, gleamed once more in its case, a symbol not of ruin but of redemption. As Poirot and Hastings prepared to depart Villa Celeste, the dawn broke over the sea, casting a golden light. Well, Hastings said, another triumph for the grey cells. But that twist Claudia and Rossi together, I never saw it coming. Poirot smiled, adjusting his hat. Mon ami, the heart of a mystery is in its surprises. Now, let us return to London, where the Tisana waits, and the world, it is a little more orderly.